Hello and welcome to Hands of the Goddess, an interview series where we delve into the wisdom and experiences of those who work with feminine deities. I'm Dragonclaw, and today we are welcoming back Dolores, a devoted priestess who will be sharing her insights on the element of earth and its significance in priestess work. Thank you once again for joining us, Dolores.
Thank you for having me back on.
So the first thing we want to go over is just introducing people to the element of Earth in this aspect of it. I know everyone's familiar with the planet Earth and the substance Earth, but when you really look at it from a spiritual perspective, there's a lot more going on. So Dolores, can you explain what the element of Earth represents in the context of priestess work and your work?
Sure. So the element of earth, like you had stated, is really about the physical realm. It's the world we live in. And in this world, we have to know how to navigate, right? Because we do live in this physical realm. So utilizing the element of earth, basically it helps us and each individual to align what is right for them in this physical realm or what they need. So, for example, lots of times when we're feeling ungrounded and we need more clarity, we can utilize the element of earth to ask for more support, clarity, guidance to become grounded and to really connect to this. And for, again, each individual, it will come in a way in which that individual can receive those things because it's going to talk to us the way that we can process and understand to move forward. Make sense?
Oh, yeah. Did you develop a connection with the earth in a specific way?
Yes, I did. And for me, that element of earth is really... The best way that I can really explain it is to not only to utilize it for myself, for all the things that I just stated, but also to use it for helping others to receive that information that they're able to process as well. So not only do I use it for myself in those ways and that deeper connection, but it guides me also to understand what other individuals need. And I use the element, all the elements, in a lot of my work for them to receive this information. So it's pretty cool. I'll connect to the element of earth and it'll guide me in what steps I need to take either for myself or working with individuals. Even in my body work sessions, I'll use all the elements. And it's amazing when people just connect to that themselves. All I am is really a tool and how they can just receive that information.
Yeah, out of all the elements, it seems as though people gravitate towards earth most as something that they understand and they intuitively grasp right away. Do you think that kids naturally have a connection to the earth?
Yes, they definitely have a connection to the earth because there is no social hang-ups.
Yeah.
Right? That's really the main thing. You know, the physical realm is really hard to navigate for all of us, myself included at times, right?
Yeah.
Where for kids, things just come naturally. Oh, this makes sense. Let me do this. Or this is how I'm going to, navigate through this. It comes very natural because they come from a place that is aligned within them.
Yeah, I talk to people about elements a lot, and I almost never see people talk about their connection to fire and air, and a few of the times I'll hear water as people's way to connect. But earth does seem to be the main way people ground themselves back into their physical bodies, their realities. So perhaps our thinking and our society is letting us disconnect, but is there a specific ritual that we can do to reconnect? Say somebody who's always wearing shoes and in an office, maybe lives on the third story of a building. Is there a way to connect without actually touching the earth, or do we have to go and do the work as close to the earth as possible?
Yeah, there is a way to connect, whether you live in a high rise or you're at work. Number one, you're going to really want to do is have some type of earth elements, right? Could be a living plant. It could be a stone. It could be something along that line in which they can really look at that and just take a deep breath in and just connect. So often many people will really do that. You know, people live in high rises. If they have a balcony, they have plants, or they have plants within the house, or they can have just a little altar on their desk with some earth-based objects or things that represent the earth for them, or things that represent grounding or clarity. So these are all things that really you can just, utilize and really do. So many people on their desk, they'll have little things, whether it's pictures of people, family. Just try to make it simple, again, in regards to what helps you to connect to that element of earth. It's even some feminine, because it is a feminine access. So they can have, maybe a picture of a goddess as well, too. So there's so many different things in which they can utilize and do. Even incense, right? Aromatic scents, even though that belongs with air, but it also can go with earth as well, too, to help them from the plant material.
That's very interesting. I have never considered that incense are sort of a fusion between earth and air. And then, correct. And then there's exactly. The fire element. How about Earth's relationship to the other elements? You've said Earth is a feminine element, and I noticed that people seem to ground with the two feminine elements, earth and water. Mm-hmm. Is there a certain hierarchy in the elements, or a relationship between them all that you've seen with Earth as the focus?
Earth is actually the container of all the other elements.
Ah.
Yeah, right? So think of it, right? We have, let's just say, the physical realm of Earth itself. That's the container. That's how we are going to be navigating, especially in this modern world. But then within that, we also have water, which is the emotional realm, right? Then we have air, which is the mental and communication. Then we also have fire, which is action, balance, and that one is masculine. Then we have the fire, which is all about, understanding how to blend them all. So within the earth element, that is the container for all the other elements. That is kind of like the beginning for all of us.
So it would seem it's the most critical, because if you don't have it, the other ones most likely get out of hand. Correct.
If you're ungrounded, right? Fire and air are going to go like crazy, right? The mental realm, and not having enough balance, right? Be getting too burned out. So you got even in the water one, our emotions are just kind of going crazy. So we really have to understand that Earth is this beautiful container that is in each of us. That helps and supports the other elements.
That's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I love to intertwine everything and try to give people a different lens as well, too, on how to connect to themselves, align to themselves. So, and show them a different lens to kind of look through, So it doesn't necessarily have to be like, okay, this is the earth element. It's the physical realm. Let me just kind of like, select these items. No, select items that remind you of the earth as well, too. You can do that.
Oh, that's interesting. It's really useful. A lot of people don't live on the ground floors of buildings, and this bringing the elements of earth up with you into your home is brilliant. There's a lot of practice recently with crystals. I've noticed people have gained a huge interest in crystals. Do you know of any misconceptions that people are developing in the modern age? Anything about the old way we used to work with Earth maybe 10 years ago and some sort of newly developed ideas?
Once again, looking through a different lens, what represents, each of the elements for you. Crystals are wonderful to have, but they are all suggestions, in regards to the vibration of each crystal and what they can do and how they can support you. But maybe one crystal that they're working with isn't giving them what they need, and they find another crystal that would remind them more of Earth, what it does for them. Because remember, crystals are vibration, they are energy. Each individual has their own unique energy.
Oh, that's really interesting. So maybe
Right.
try several crystals before you just gravitate towards one.
Correct. Exactly. So they're great. Someone somewhere along the line said, oh, this crystal can pink quartz is good for love. Okay. Self-love, relationships. But maybe there's another crystal that really someone can utilize and use that will give them that self-love or feel the feeling of love versus a rose quartz. They're just there just to guide you. And remember, everything is there just to guide you. We take that information, that's the foundation, but then along the way we figure out, okay, this is going to work for me better. So don't get stuck on one thing.
This is so cool. The Earth clearly has a lot of benefits focused on our body and our mind and our emotions. Now, what about the soul? Do you feel as though the Earth itself, it draws us here for a reason?
Oh, yes, definitely when it comes to the soul. We each come into this world with a soul map. That's why I call my reading soul map energy readings, right? We come into this world already knowing information, having somewhat of a soul map, but along the way, we are allowed to change that soul map to a certain degree, right? So the Earth calls us to work with that soul map as well as understanding our challenges, our desires, our passions. If you ask anybody, they're going to come into this world, and as they grow and evolve, it's like, I want to find my soul purpose. So their soul purpose can be a number of different things. It doesn't actually have to be one where it's intertwined with other things. Body healers, can be licensed massage therapists, right? And they also can teach spiritual background. It's a combination of things.
It seems the Earth is transforming us as we're transforming it.
It is, and for a lot of individuals, whether you want to call yourself a healer or spiritual coach, whatever that title may be, we are working already, whether they know it or not, with the Earth. They're being guided, and they're being guided by all the elements.
Now, what would you say would be some descriptive factors or ways to recognize someone who has lost their connection to the Earth element or even just dampened their connection to it?
Yeah. Our last one was about cycles and seasons, right? So we all go through these cycles, and these cycles are there to, teach us different lessons and to guide us for that next step. So when people are going through transformations, lots of times they'll have that urge like, okay, something's going to happen. Something else is in the wind. Whether you might call yourself psychic or not, we all have intuition, right? And we're all connected. And when we can really connect to that and really understand that we need some time maybe to have some downtime, and listen. So many of us shrug it off. Myself, at times, will shrug it off, right? But if you really listen and connect and listen to your body, your mind, and your spirit, then that connection really comes into play. Again, that question that you asked as far as feeling lost is a sense of not being connected to anything.
Wow.
right? We feel like we lost our way. And that's a big, big impact where we know, okay, I'm not aligned. So if I'm not aligned, then I'm not going to move forward.
Right. So
we all have that sense, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so it seems like that's when people really do need to reestablish the connection. And in that state, it's often hard to recognize that and hard to come back to it. I know a lot of people ask about just a simple practice, something I can write down and do once a week. Do you have a specific meditation or a practice you could recommend to people that just need to get back into it and they really don't have a lot of their bearings yet? Is there just a simple thing they can do consistently?
Yeah. I like morning rituals. Okay. That's how I start off my day. So for me, I happen to live in the state of Florida, so I have a nice little enclosed lanai. I go out, I greet the morning, I listen to, some music sometimes or no music sometimes. And as I'm sitting there having my coffee, I'm just connecting with my higher self and just asking and guiding and asking for support for the day, for whatever it brings. You can write this down as well too, listen and journal, and then ask the question, Earth, how can you help me to navigate this day? What is it that I need to do, right? For those who like to journal. Simple little steps like that is the most effective way. And really listen, and when you write this down or you get this download, really don't question it, just kind of do it. It could be take a different way to work one day. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, something as simple as that to change up the cycle. It could be just have more patience today with yourself, whatever it may be. So that's a really simple thing that you can really do, 10, 15 minutes in the morning. You can just do that little morning ritual.
Yeah, that seems very possible, very much something people could start getting into. And then once they do that, they'll be developing a deeper connection to themselves and to Earth.
Correct, exactly. And then they're going to see themselves evolve where it's easier for them to listen. It's easier for them to then take the action. That would be the next step. Because lots of times we can do this but not take the action.
So do you yourself feel connected to the Earth? And if so, what is that experience like for you?
Oh, of course. I'm connected to definitely all the elements. So I could be out maybe doing, at my job, doing a session on someone. And, someone might have a lot of anxiety, a bad day when they come for me for a session. So I ask Earth to help ground me, keep me present and in the moment.
Now, have you ever experienced the presence of something like earth spirits or energies of the earth or ancestors during your rituals?
Yes, because I do all of that work myself. So that's a beautiful feeling lots of times, whether it's myself, whether I'm working on somebody, I can feel ancestors. And then when I do my home blessings and clearings or land blessings and clearings, I can actually feel presence from a different time, a different place, people who have had presence on that land or in that home and what that home or that land needs. I can guarantee you anybody who goes through their house might like one particular room, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. And that room, what? Makes them feel safe, maybe it has a lot of light coming through, whatever the reason is. They feel good in that. And then maybe another room maybe doesn't feel as good, or the house energy just feels a little off, especially if there's a lot of transition, if you live with other people. It's kind of like the same thing. You can go to a party and there's 50 people in the room and the 51st person walks in and doesn't really have good energy. what happens to the rest of the 50 people?
Yeah, you feel the shift right away.
You feel the shift. So also, too, I want to remind people that when you're going through a transition, your home also shifts with energy, too. There's a lot of, like, anxiety. I don't have clarity. It's not grounded. So this is what happens as well, too.
Now, that really does seem to be there are spirits, and often we hear people talking about spirits as being in the spirit world, but the earth seems to be spiritual in itself. Do you see it more as a container of spirits, or, well, not or, maybe both? Does it have a consciousness itself outside of the spirits that it hosts?
Yes, it's a free-flowing energy.
Yes.
It is. It is, and it's an energy just like we're made up of energy, and it has needs as well.
Now, what about the Mars situation? Do you think people going to Mars will be able to establish a similar connection to that planet, or do you feel as though we have a very special relationship with this planet?
Well, every planet that you're going to visit is going to have its own unique energy. And depending on how it aligns with each individual, right, that energy is going to be different because it has its own energy. Yes, we can go to another planet if feasible and create, communities, but the energy will always be a little bit different.
Yeah, it's so interesting to think about that people will be living off of it.
Build a whole thing just like Earth, but the energy is going to be different. Why?
Yeah.
Because of the fact that planet has different needs. Therefore, our style will have to change a little bit.
That is so interesting.
Yep. Doesn't mean a bad thing or a good thing. It just is.
Oh yeah, it's very much we don't know what the spirit of Mars would be like actually in person.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Or Venus,
Yeah.
Venus is more feminine, Mars is more masculine. There's that type of thing that kind of goes on. So yeah.
Most likely it'll be important for us to keep our connection to Earth either way.
Yes. Earth is that whole container that's within us. But it doesn't mean that, a colony can't be built, but we will always have some roots in our DNA to Earth.
Oh, yeah, and we would be bringing oxygen and plants from Earth, animals from Earth, everything would still be coming from Earth.
Right, exactly.
I've often thought of us as like the sort of diaspora of the Earth, like we're her seeds, and we're all going to be spreading across the whole galaxy one day.
Yeah, definitely. So some of the stuff that I teach in my Priestess program, and I also do some small classes, is some of the mystery school teachings of Earth, right? So Earth also works with structure.
Now, when it comes to plants and trees and gardens and things like that, in the East they have sort of separated earth and wood into two elements. But in the West we do still contain earth as its own element that also hosts plant life. Could you speak a little of the relationship between plants and the earth?
Well, first of all, every culture has their own way of working with the elements, right? This is why when you do a Google search, you're going to see a variety of different things of what each of the elements are, right? Instead of spirit, sometimes you'll see ether. And in acupuncture, would use the elements in a different way. But all of the teachings and the basis are trying to accomplish the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Even though they're called different things, but the end result is something that each of those cultures are looking for. So when it comes to plants themselves, plants provide so much for us. They can provide, the food, they can provide the oxygen and from the trees and stuff that we need, right? So when you think of it as whether you're talking more spiritual, whether you're talking more of the other cultures and stuff like that, they are striving for that same end result, and they're being honored, right?
Yeah.
It's about energy systems and nutrition and all of those beautiful things that we honor for those seasons and those cycles.
How about the cycles? Do you believe that Earth cycles have a spiritual quality to them? I know there's a lot of science that goes into explaining how the Earth moves, and that causes the different seasons and cycles. But do you think there's a deeper level involved in all of it?
Sure. Again, the way that I really work with that is helping for more of a structure that you need. That's what Earth is good. So the way that I teach it, it's all about the structure, and the structure in the physical realm, developing systems, developing, working with finances, finding a way to navigate, movement. All of these things are really important when you work with the earth element.
Yeah. Is there a relationship between earth and fire? I see a lot of people structuring earth as a sort of like the lowest, most feminine, darkest, the baseline of reality, and then fire being way at the top. And not to say like one's greater than the other, but as in rising and setting, the earth seems to settle and the fire seems to throw everything upward. Is there a sort of, do you see a special relationship magically or spiritually between those two elements?
Sure. Again, the way that I work with it, earth is the container, correct? It also provides structure. If you bring in fire, which is all about movement, action, balance, acting on things, right? It's more of that masculine energy. So when you work with earth and fire, you want to find out a way to have structure and navigate so you don't get too burnt out and you have more balance. So that's how earth and fire can work.
Now, what advice would you give someone trying to work with the earth element in particular? Perhaps someone says, well, that's my main focus. I want to be an earth priestess. I want to connect people to the earth. What would be your strongest point of advice for them to head straight towards that direction?
Well, in the priestess program that I utilize, we begin with earth. That's the main element. And then we also add on the 3 archetypes that are associated with this element.
What advice would you give someone who's looking for books, resources, tools? Are there any sort of things like that you would recommend to people?
I would definitely recommend anything on books of interest all about earth spirituality, because that's going to have the seasons, the cycles, how to connect spiritually, how to maybe build, altars, go out in nature. They're all great things like that they can kind of like look at and see what kind of interests them and begin there. I think that's really important for them to understand. There are many ways in which they can connect, find a way to, see what's going to align with you, and then see how you evolve. That's the main thing. And the earth element itself have 3 archetypes: Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. So that's another layer to each of the elements that I teach. So not only can you bring in the element of earth for that structure and beauty and all that systems and all those good things, I begin with each of the 3 archetypes. So Taurus teaches the value of enjoying the earthly realm of matter, right?
Yeah.
is all about the significance of dedicated work, okay, about community, about rhythms, about cycles, sacredness into the natural world. And Capricorn teaches us the value of structure and form, to get things done, to have more of a structured system.
Yeah, that's so interesting how Earth is interlaced through all of the mystical practices.
Yeah. So I, utilize it probably a little bit different from, my teachings and my teacher, and bringing in these archetypes, which all archetypes are great. And again, my training also has some basic shamanic astrology, which helps us. So I can call in, like if I'm going to redecorate a room, I can call in Taurus to help me to make it beauty. Right?
And oh yes, and speaking of animals, would you say that Earth is the best energy to connect to the animal kingdom with?
Of course, because animals just, again, they have no titles. They know how to connect. They only eat when they're hungry, right? They don't destroy anything. So by looking at this, we can definitely see the animal kingdom in Earth, how it's a give and take.
Oh, that is so nice. Let's talk a little bit about sacred spaces, sacred sites, and energy vortexes. Have you ever experienced anything like this, a sacred site or a vortex?
Oh, sure. And you can probably find one of them if you go out in your backyard as well, too. Very simple little thing you can do is, I personally have experienced from places I visited, number one, the energy shifts. My mindset goes in a place where it's just very high energy. And I'm sure everyone who's listening to this at one time or another walked somewhere and felt that energy shift. Maybe they got a little lightheaded and their vibrations really raised, So there's pockets of energy that are located throughout the world, throughout their hometown, guaranteed without a doubt. Here in where I live, do you remember the Hapahatchee?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So I used to do a lot of things down there. It was just such a wonderful place to visit, where it was all it was like old Florida, and you connected to the energy in there. So find places like that wherever you live, parks or special places, and go in, and you could just feel that energy, and that energy gives you this wonderful feeling of just. The best way that I can really explain it is just, again, no titles, no roles, just self-love. It's just an amazing energy,
Yeah.
And it's great to do a lot of work in that as well, too.
Yeah, I've experienced it myself, too, and it seems very obvious to me, but a lot of people go to these sacred sites and they notice that they feel it too, and then they keep searching for these sites and coming back to them. Is there something people can do to take it with them, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, you can even, like I said, find something local in your area. There's all sorts, in every area you live, there is something that you can go out and check and really get connected to. Also, too, you can even do something on Google and listen to and see these sacred sites and just look at the picture and be really connected to them. It was funny. One time I was on a cruise and I did these offshore, sites, and I was in Mexico at one of those sites. And they had different pyramids, and they used the different pyramids obviously for different things. But the guy who was doing the tour didn't tell us what they were used for. And each temple that I visited, I felt a connection, like, okay, here was just where people gathered. Here was where they had special rituals. You could feel the difference in there. And sure enough, when the guy was done, he said, okay, this site we visited was for gatherings. This site was for rituals. So it's pretty funny on how you can do that. So, explore the area that you're currently in. I'm sure you're going to be able to find something. And it doesn't have to have like this big neon site, like mystical site. Find a place. you'll be able to find a place, guaranteed.
Oh, this is wonderful. I'd love to have you back again to go over the other elements. Would you like to come back and do water next time?
Yeah, what is great. What is the one that a lot of people get hung up on?
Yeah, it seems like this earth has been very much like the foundation, the space to start holding all of these higher energies and grasping them.
Correct. And working with all of the elements as well, too. So understanding, if you get too emotionally charged, how are you going to use earth?
So make sure to come back for that one, everyone. And Dolores, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom about this element for us.
Yes, my pleasure for sure.
I'm so glad to have you. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on Hands of the Goddess. We hope this conversation has inspired you to explore the elements of earth more in your own spiritual practices. Stay tuned for more interviews in this series where we continue to uncover the wisdom of the elements with Dolores. And we will see you next time. Until then, blessed be.